Hello. I'm sorry, I didn't see you there. So, greetings and welcome to episode 173, the Word About Game podcast, where we discuss 5 stories centered around what's been going on in gaming, the games industry, and gaming culture over the last 7 days. This week we discussed the deluge of sexual abuse allegations throughout the games industry, the developers of Iron Fury doubling down on the homophobia, the supposed revival of Telltale games, Valve's continued fight against the European Commission anti-competition verdict, and the latest character customization options revealed for the upcoming Cyberpunk 2077. Timestamps are in the description below in the video, so if you want to skip things like the yawning heart of darkness that is the beginning of this week's podcast, feel free. Feel free. Amy, how are you?
Good, thanks. I've finished with the Chuck DVD that I said I wasn't going to borrow off you 2 podcasts ago. It was still a pain, though. And it wasn't just because I had to switch discs, but because I had to disentangle my entire capture card, because it was like, oh, the capture card doesn't have HDCP. You have to switch it, otherwise you're just going to record this. And I was like, no, I just want to watch it. So I unplug, and then I was like, oh no, I need more footage for Control. I plug everything back in, and then DVDs, man, physical media. Like, I love it, but it's a love-hate relationship.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as if it kept like giving you porn ads during the middle of it.
Physical media. Well, didn't give me porn ads. Porn ads are weird. Like, some of the, like, at least 50% of everything in that ad I'm looking at going, really? But then I'm like, no kink shaming, I guess. Don't want to be that person. I'm Amy, that's Keith, by the way.
Indeed.
You forgot my names. You did really well, though. I knew we were doing the bit. I knew we were doing the bit with the comic, and I didn't see you there. I wasn't expecting the soothing fireside voice when you did that. So that caught me off guard a little bit. I'm starting to wonder if you should be the host and I should be the other person. You've got the voice, the smooth, calming voice.
Descend into chaos.
I think it must be your DM's voice. No, there wasn't as much exasperation in it for you to be your DM's voice, because I've met your players. I'm one of your players. It's not just me, alright? Shall we?
Yes.
Take a sip of my brain juice. And we'll begin. I didn't actually write an overall headline for this, because there's like 2 stories that I pulled.
Yeah.
And I just realised, I'm like, I didn't actually write an overall headline for this. I'll probably just use the actual headline for the first story. Part 1 of 1.1. Sexual abuse allegations hit half-dozen game developers. This is from Jeff Grubb over at VentureBeat, who writes, Jeremy Soule, Alec Holoka, Alexis Kennedy, Luke Shelton, Michael Antonov, Mark Ten Bosch, Vlad Miku. These are some of the men facing allegations of abusive behaviour as the Me Too movement comes to games. This deluge of accusations began on Monday when developer Nathalie Lawhead wrote a blog post to accuse Elder Scrolls V Skyrim composer Jeremy Soule of rape. As an act of solidarity with Lawhead, fellow developer Zoe Quinn posted an allegation of abusive behaviour about Night in the Woods co-designer Alec Holoka. In addition to Lawhead, vocalist Airily Brighton also accused Soule of inappropriate and abusive behaviour. Brighton has worked on Minecraft and Ori and the Blind Forest, but back in 2014 she alleged that Soule sent her a video of him masturbating, according to a post on her Facebook page. When she told him that wasn't what she wanted, she alleges that he blocked her from working on a project. About Brighton, Soule told Kotaku that he doesn't agree with her characterization. The composer also denied Lawhead's accusations. Kennedy has denied some of his accusations against him on Twitter. In a thread, game designer and writer Meg Jarnoff accused Kennedy, who was one of the co-founders of Fail Better Games. Game writer Olivia Wood backed up those accusations. Wood explained that Kennedy used his position to prey on her and other young employees for sex, and then when those relationships would end, Wood alleges that Kennedy would use his position to belittle her and other women. In his denial, Kennedy said that he had only consensual relationships, and he's calling the cops about what he calls a campaign of harassment. Kennedy did not deny that he used his power to procure consent. In response to this, Failbetter posted a statement on Twitter. Quote, "We believe and stand with everyone who has come forward to speak out about Alexis Kennedy tonight." End quote. In a tweet, Adelaide Gardner said that Splash Damage developer Luke Shelton physically and emotionally abused her. Gardner said that he hurt her during sex and wouldn't stop even when she asked him to. She also alleged that he would text her about how she was not allowed to take photos of his home, and when she stayed with him, she said he wouldn't give her a way to get back into his home when he wasn't around. She said if she left, she'd be end up locked outside for hours. Antonov is one of the co-founders of Oculus VR. In a thread on Twitter, Autumn Rose Taylor alleges that Antonov took her to a hotel room to show her demos of VR games, but while in VR, she claims that Antonov began putting his hands up her skirt. Antonov no longer works at Oculus or Facebook. In her own Twitter thread, game developer Carrie Witt alleges that Bosch aggressively harassed her over multiple days of an industry event. She says that he would touch her and put her arm around her. What made all of this worse is that no one around her stepped in to end the harassment, and when she did bring it up, people laughed it off. Witt says she tried to avoid industry events now because of the experience. In the wake of other Me Too stories, game developer Mina Veneer resurfaced her Facebook post from October 2018 about Vlad Miku. Veneer claims that Miku continued attempting to initiate sex even after she told him no. On top of that, when she tried to explain that his behaviour wasn't okay, he blamed her for not being clear enough. During that alleged conversation, Miku also brought up how he attempted to assess her willingness by rubbing his erection on her. That was the end of that first bit. There's obviously that's summarized. Like, I wasn't sure what to do about all of the stories like that came out because
there's a lot.
The dam broke on Monday, I think. On Monday, and I didn't know whether to like just have the full stories and read them all out, and then I thought, oh, I could like just. I found a summary. It worked.
Yeah.
If you want, you should read you should like that was difficult enough to stomach, but
yeah,
you should go and read these people's accounts.
Yeah. I mean, we discussed this during the week because there was I can't remember which website it was now. I noticed a lot of tweets about only one games media really reporting on these things, and it was just about the composer. Then it definitely gained momentum.
A lot of sites took their time with it, and obviously it's been a developing thing for like the entire week. It's like it started on Monday and it hasn't really stemmed. There was still stuff coming out yesterday, which is Saturday, so I don't think it's the day before yesterday from when this podcast was put out. So yeah, like people were, I think, just trying to be responsible, rather than necessarily trying to be the quickest.
Yeah.
To like post the story. We'll get into some more stuff. I need to read part 2.
Yeah.
Which is Night in the Woods designer Alec Haloka dies. This is from Jason Schreier over at Kotaku, who writes, Alec Haloka, a developer on Night in the Woods and other independent video games, died Saturday morning, according to his sister. The news comes days after allegations began to circulate against Haloka as multiple people accused him of abusive behaviour. Quote, Alec Haloka, my brother and best friend, passed away this morning, wrote Eileen Haloka in a Twitter post on Saturday. Those who know me will know that I believe survivors and have always done everything I can to support survivors, those suffering from mental illnesses and those with chronic illnesses. Alec was a victim of abuse, and he also spent a lifetime battling mood and personality disorders. I'll not pretend that he was not also responsible for causing harm, but deep down he was a person who wanted only to offer people care and kindness. It took him a while to figure out how. End quote. Eileen Haloka added that her brother had spent the past few days getting support from crisis services in Manitoba, the Canada province in which he lived. She said in recent years her brother had become a new person and was working towards rehabilitation and a better life. The allegations against Alec Holowka began on Monday night with game developer Zoe Quinn accusing him of emotional and sexual abuse. On Wednesday, fellow Night in the Woods developer Scott Benson said he and his wife Bethany Hockenberry were cutting ties with Holowka, noting in an update to Kickstarter backers that there was much more to the story than just one accusation. Other game developers shared corroboration and words of support throughout the week, and on Thursday another woman said Holowka attempted to remove her from a game they were working on after she rejected his advances. Following Eileen Holowka's tweet about her brother's death, she offered a response to those who had come out to point fingers and cast blame. Quote, and in case it's not already fucking obvious, Alex specifically said he wished the best for Zoe and everyone else, so don't use our grief as an excuse to harass people. Go outside, take care of someone, and work towards preventing these kinds of things in the first place. End quote. It's been a very, very rough week. In terms of like being even like on the periphery of like games. There were no winners. Like everybody lost something, I think. I don't really have the words. Do you want to jump in while I try and compose myself?
I mean, I wasn't gonna until you said that. I mean, it's just there's a lot of speculation you could make about what's written here, about what's happened. But in the end, it's just a lot of stuff which has been in the industry for a long time, not just the games industry, like any entertainment industry, it appears, or probably just any industry, is coming out, and there's going to be a lot of back and forth between people, and so a lot is going to spill onto social media because that's a thing.
Yeah,
that
is a thing.
And
Oops.
As we've seen before with stuff like Riot Games, with their sexual harassment stuff, it takes like 9 months plus when it's fast tracked for stuff to get sorted out, really, if it's on the legal side, and by then most people have forgotten about it.
Well, I mean,
but everyone who's involved is still dealing with it for those 9+ months.
And the rest of their lives, and the however many months and or years that preceded that moment.
I'm just thinking the Riot thing, it was actually about this time last year, so it was about 12 months.
Yeah, there was the Kotaku expose was a thing that happened. That was completely... It was very different to this because it was about legal action, and we've covered the legal action as recently as last week on the podcast, whereas this is just survivors of abuse telling their story, or their stories, and it's hard to read, but it's necessary. Like, we need to, and I say we, like we're a part of the industry, we need to build a better industry, and this is one of the ways that we do that, by not letting people get away with stuff, and not having to have people rely on whisper networks, because whisper networks are great unless you're not hearing the whispers. Like, there was something else I was gonna say as well. Believe survivors, like, so many of the people who have come forward, like the women and non-binary folk who have come forward, have had to like lock their Twitter accounts down, or just delete them outright, because of course this is a battleground for some reason, rather than just normal decent human beings being normal decent human beings, and that's very shitty to see online. But I mean, I'm gonna say be better to each other, but right now I think it's just a case of just listen. I think is probably the best advice. Not that I'm trying to give advice, but it's best just to like sit back and listen and support and amplify certain people's voices as best as you can, and that's what I guess we try to do here. Like, there's not really much of a discussion to be had on this kind of topic, but at the same time, it's too important to ignore. So yeah, that was that. Shall we move on?
Please.
It's okay. Number 2. This one does have a headline. Ion Fury developer Backtracks says it won't remove gay joke because of censorship. This is from Nathan Grayson over at Kotaku, who writes, upon its release, Ion Fury seemed like a bulletproof success. See what you did there. The Duke Nukem and Shadow Warrior inspired retro shooter launched earlier this month to rave reviews, with many praising its bloody, chunky blend of old and new. But shortly after, players discovered homophobic content in the game, and some began to circulate screenshots of transphobic and sexist comments made by the game's developers on Discord. Not sure what that sentence is supposed to say. Last week, the game's developer and publisher apologised and said they'd remove the homophobic content from the game. This week, the Ion Fury team is singing a different tune. Ion Fury lead developer Richard... I had problems with this last week as well. Richard Gobil, who goes by the handle Terminx on Steam and who had appeared to have taken part in the Discord conversations criticising SJWs, feminists and trans people, posted a statement via his Steam account that was described as a joint statement from Voidpoint and 3D Realms. Quote, "We will absolutely not be censoring Ion Fury or any of our other games now or in the future, including but not limited to by removing gags such as gaming's most controversial face wash," end quote. And that is I don't think I actually pasted it. That's a reference to the Olay face wash being replaced with Ogay, because apparently that's hilarious and a hill worth dying on. In last week's statement, Voidpoint had described the comments and in-game content as insensitive, unacceptable, and counterproductive to causes of equality, saying that it would donate $10,000 to LGBTQ anti-suicide non-profit The Trevor Project and patch the content out of the game. Publisher 3D Realms said the content was not approved by us and said future contracts would allow the publisher to sever relationships with anyone who didn't follow its zero-tolerance policy for hate speech. Since then, Ion Fury has been dogged by negative reviews, dropping its almost unanimously positive Steam score down to mostly positive overall. Reviews left in the past 30 days average out as being mixed. Recent negative reviews largely rage about the developers caving to SJWs and censorship. Voidpoint and 3D Realms appear to have heard the masses outraged about outrage loud and clear. 3D Realms issued a statement to Kotaku in which it expressed support for Voidpoint's decision to vociferously that's a word. Yep. Defend its joke about how Olay, a shampoo brand that had a catchy commercial in the 90s, is gay. Quote, "Jokes at the expense of marginalised communities will not be present in future games published by 3D Realms. However, a portion of our community made it loud and clear they felt removing Ogay was censorship and should be protected by free speech. Voidpoint wanted to listen and we respected that decision." End quote. There's a second quote from Richard Terminx Gobil, who says, "We do not support censorship of creative works of any kind and regret our initial decision to alter a sprite in the game instead of trusting our instincts. 3D Realms and Voidpoint stand together on this matter." Thoughts?
You know what would be really, really funny? If someone at Olay put a cease and desist on them.
Oh, please do.
Or did something to say that they were negatively impacting their brand by associating themselves with homophobic material.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
It's not going to happen.
No.
I don't think anyone at Olay will ever hear about this story.
I'm going to try to email them. Just be like, hey, by the way, guys, this is a thing. Like, I mean, we talked about this last week. We talked about it in the context of this is a thing that happened. They apologized. Let's all move on with our lives and not think about it again. And then it was literally the day after we'd had that discussion where you pointed out, oh, this happened. And I was like, okay. And then I read about it independently and it's just like, Jesus fucking Christ, guys. Like, it's your game. It's they're your companies. Do whatever you want, but
Yeah,
Jesus.
I mean, I love the comment on free speech, which is,
I mean, do we have to go down this
yeah,
road
it's like,
again?
oh, apparently we have the right to free speech. It's like, yeah, but you know what I mean? The consequences of your speech. I mean,
And
yeah,
censorship is
put
to
it
do with
right.
governments and stuff, not restricting your speech.
Hmm.
No, they didn't.
No, they complained about, the content in there, which we recently said. So really says like, oh, we didn't intend this. Now it's like, oh yeah, we totally did, and we should have stuck with our like gut feeling. Your original gut feelings was, yeah, this is okay, and we should keep it in. But you apologize because you upset people, and then you realize you upset a larger group of people or a
No, a
more
more
vocal group
vocal
of
group of
people.
people. Like I said it last week. Like I don't want to bang the drum. You know, I hate banging the drum of being like, "I told you so." And I'm not aiming this at you because I'm pretty sure you agreed with me. But it was a case of reading their apology, read like, "We're sorry we got caught," as opposed to like, "Oh, we're sorry we got called out," as opposed to, "We're sorry we did this." And then this comes out, and it's just like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. You are 100% not sorry that you did this. You're just sorry that you got called out. And I'm looking forward to the statement next week when they decide they're going to patch it out again. Like, the fuck, man? My head's spinning.
Uh,
They're still going to have the sensitivity training, apparently, that they were talking about. And it's just like, I'm
yeah,
pretty sure
they'll
they.
still probably put a pride flag up on Pride Month, but
I will travel to their offices and throw rocks at that pride flag. Um, the like if they have sensitivity training and then like the sensitivity officer like just ask the sensitivity officer, hey, what about this? This is use that as an example. What do you think the sensitivity officer is going to tell you? You fucking
um,
morons.
yeah.
Like,
I think the first reaction from the defense also would be, "Are you joking me, or do you really need to be explained why it would not be okay and would anger people?"
like they know it's not okay, and they know it. They know it's angered people because that was the message that they put out last week. What's happened is they. What's happened is what it looks like is the developers are of a certain type of person, and they've been, I don't know, almost like buoyed, supported by the people complaining about SJWs and censorship and free speech to be able to go, well, they don't want us to take it out. And they've obviously paid for the game because they've left reviews, even though most of them probably already refunded the game already, because that's how Steam reviews work. You buy the game, you load it up, you let it run in the background for 5 minutes, you leave your review, and then you just flutter away. Why didn't the review bombing pick this up? Because Steam has a thing now, which has been working about, which has been working to say like it detects review bombs
It
and has
doesn't
been
put them
doing.
in the overall
It might have just, yeah, it doesn't like let them affect
overall score.
the overall score. Like it filters the stuff out.
Maybe if the negative remarks go for a certain distance, like a certain number of days, and that in the first thing, because at first it was about one thing, and next it was about next thing, that there was a consistent amount of review bombings over a certain period that it actually lowered the so that if there's a constant outrage, it still puts that up. Whereas if there's just a blip,
Yeah,
it
maybe
will
we'll
get
see
rid of
it. I mean, I think the review bomb will probably stop now because you gotta remember it's like before people who were upset about them being homophobic, sexist, transphobic shitlords didn't review bomb the game because that's a pathetic thing to do. Because the game had mostly positive reviews. It was only afterwards that it
I'm
started
sure
dipping.
some of those people would have review bombed the game.
I mean, there's review bombing and then there's just leaving negative reviews. Like a lot of people got caught out because of the timing of this, where they probably already bought the game because it did look like a really cool game, and then they played it and they loved it, and then they were like, oh, but then there's all this as well. Shit. I mean, that's why I was missing a review video the week before last because
Yeah.
I got caught out, and I was like, I don't have time to do anything else. I'm just gonna have to leave it as it is. Um,
No.
it happens. Like, I'm not really that bothered because at the end of the day, I wouldn't have been able to objectively give a thing,
Yeah.
an opinion about this game without being like fucking face wash, fucking Discord. Um, 3D Realms is the one that interests me a lot because, well, I kind of saw Void Point last week, sort of just like being sorry we offended you, the time-honored classic non-apology. Like 3D Realms to then turn around to say, we don't condone this, we don't want to see it in any of our games. And what was it? We put a thing in our contracts going forward that means we can just terminate our contracts because we have a zero tolerance policy for hate speech.
Yeah.
Apparently, you don't have a zero tolerance policy for this kind of stuff because it's not going away. It's a zero tolerance policy starting from tomorrow, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, to be honest, I'm a bit more pissed at them than I am at Void Point because, like, Void Point is just being Void Point.
Yeah, I mean, maybe without that thing in the contract, there's no way for them to like legally leverage or whatever. But that seems
bizarre.
They haven't even come out and said we don't agree with this or anything. So,
like, we don't agree with this. Like, we have a zero tolerance policy for hate speech, and we've included a thing we've included the stipulation in our contract going forward that if they do this again, we're just going to terminate the contract, and that's all you need to say. But apparently they completely support Void Point in their decision to die on the hill of a really fucking terrible homophobic joke. And I don't mean terrible as in it's hurtful, I mean terrible as in it's a fucking terrible joke.
yeah.
Like,
I mean, it is very sort of like middle school-esque. It's not even high school humor.
No, it's not, is it? It's like 12-year-old who, like, it's a 12-year-old in the 90s when, idiot kids didn't know any better about using the word gay in that way and going, Ole kind of sounds like, oh, gay. Ha, 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 ha. But even then, I don't think we would have laughed at it for more than like 10 minutes. And then gone on with the rest of our day, reading Star Trek books and playing RPGs because we were nerds.
Oh, Magic the Gathering.
Magic the Gathering was a big one.
Well, which was confused with tarot cards and the Ouija board, I believe.
It was lumped in with tarot cards and a Ouija board in our high school and got banned. So that was interesting. It's probably because it had the word magic in the title.
Yes, it's a card and it's magic, but
it's magic cards, therefore ban them. And then Russell brought tarot cards to school not that long later, and that was apparently totally fine. So I don't know what the fuck was going on at our school, but that was weird. Yeah, like, you know what? There's a story that I've put later down that I want to draw now. Right. So I'm going to go with this one next. Because I feel like there's some complementary points to be made. Or some contrasting points to be made, I should say.
Contrasting, okay. Yeah, I know where we are.
Yeah, so we'll move on to Cyberpunk 2077's character creator now allows non-binary gender options. You know that little accent above the E?
Yeah.
What does that change the sound into?
You're the one who did a literature degree.
Yeah, right. English literature. Like, I don't know what the accent above the E... This is from Jordan Ramey, or Ramey, or... Yeah, it's probably one of those two.
Or Renee.
Amore.
That's all I can think of.
This is from Jordan Amore over at GameSpot, who writes, CD Projekt Red has endured pushback for Cyberpunk 2077's representation of gender, but the developer is eager to respond to fan feedback and create a more inclusive experience. The studio has begun with the character creator, adjusting it to allow for gender options beyond the binary male or female. Quote, we really want to make a video game that's really inclusive. Senior concept artist Marth Jonkers, great name, said in an interview with Metro. Of course, if you tackle certain subjects, then you will expect people to have an opinion about it, and we respect that. And it's good that people gave us feedback. In our character creation menu, for instance, compared to the last demo, we now give you so many more options. For instance, you don't choose your gender anymore. You don't choose, I want to be a female or male character. You now choose a body type, because we want you to feel free to create any character you want. End quote. After selecting your preferred body type, you then have the option to give your character one of two different voices. One that's male sounding, one that's female sounding, Junker said. You can mix and match. You can just connect them any way you want. And then we have a lot of extra skin tones and tattoos and hairstyles. So we really want to give people the freedom to make their own character and play the way they want to play. End quote. By providing more agency over your character's preferred gender and skin tone, CD Projekt Red is hoping more players are able to create the type of protagonist they want in Cyberpunk 2077. Most NPCs you meet will have an established gender and sexual orientation, as as well in hopes of curating more believable in-game relationships. But the team is open to further challenges and welcomes feedback from their fans. Quote, "Our team is very international and very diverse, and we have asked for a lot of feedback. We always ask for feedback, and even when we show those demos, we still ask people to tell us what they think. We just want to know that what we can improve on, because we want to make a really good game, and we really want to make a game that everybody is comfortable playing, but at the same time, we'll tackle difficult issues. It is a cyberpunk world after all." End quote. So, before we dive into the actual meat of that particular story itself, it's a contrast, right, between the stuff that we just talked about with Voidpoint and the stuff that we talked about with CD Projekt Red and Cyberpunk, and that they've listened like to what people have said and incorporated that feedback into the design of their game. Like, CD Projekt Red have made mistakes in the past. Like, I don't know if we talked about any of them specifically on the podcast. Like, I know I've talked about them on Twitter because some of them directly affected me. And this story and this whole thing that CD Projekt Red have done is the perfect example of a thing I've talked about in relation to a few different development companies, like Voidpoint, THQ Nordic is another one that springs immediately to mind. And it's not what you say, it's what you do. Like, when you fuck up and you apologize, the apology is, for me personally, is just step one. It's like, I'm interested in what you have to say, obviously, but it's not just about that. It's about your actions, right? So we look at Voidpoint, who fucked up, apologized, and then their action is to double down on their homophobia, in their in-game homophobia. That tells me everything I need to know. CD Projekt Red fucked up, apologized. They weren't the greatest of apologies, but then has come out and gone, actually, we've done something in the game. It's not perfect, but it's a step in the right direction, and that makes me more inclined to give them the benefit of the doubt. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's just how you handle things like that, and like, I felt a lot better after I saw this. Like, it's even exactly we talked about this last year, I think. We definitely talked about this on the podcast, about how you could create, like, more than just male and female characters in Cyberpunk 2077, and this is the exact way I said they could do it. You just remove the male and female options, and you just have a bunch of different body types and voices, and you mix and match them. Boom, more customization options. Everybody wins. Crazy that's one thing. Basically, what I'm saying is, like, you're welcome, internet. I did this. I am 100% responsible for this. That's not what I'm saying. I like the fact that they used the same idea I came up with off the top of my head on a podcast. What do you think of this, Keith?
I'm perfectly fine with it. I mean, it's kind of like a non-thing. It's just like, oh yeah, it's like you choose this or that. I was like, two voice? Oh wait, yeah, because there's a voice dialogue. Duh.
Yeah.
And then that was really it for me. It's like, yeah, I mean, I keep thinking about this, and it's like, is Cyberpunk trying to be Ghost in the Shell? Because it's not going to manage that. That's about as far as I go on that one.
I mean, it's trying to be Cyberpunk.
The original book has that hilarious thing at the end of the first Ghost in the Shell. Minor spoiler if you've never read it. Is that a male character buys like a cyborg body for someone else to hop into while they're like faking their own death, and accidentally, instead of getting the female one, gets a little boy one that's wearing a dress.
I'm going to assume there's more context to that and just not comment. Yeah,
there's a lot of comments there.
Yeah, no, I'm like, don't comment on things where I don't have the context. And I don't have time for you to explain Ghost in the Shell.
We don't.
So, are you sure you weren't like super confused about how to be able to be a man in Cyberpunk 2077? Oh, okay, that's weird because a lot of people were, as it turns out. Like, in the midst of one of the worst weeks I've ever had, like following along to what's going on in games culture, like, this happened, and I was like, that's really cool. and then Matt Piscatella quote tweeted someone, a YouTuber who is quite well known, with a
Were they angry?
you were very angry. Well, yeah, they were very angry. Um, with like just the worst, dumbest take I've ever seen in my entire life, which is just, wait, I'm confused. So if they have non-binary gender options, how do I pick a man? How do I play a man in Cyberpunk? I just want to be male. And he's like, I mean, you, you're either haven't read any of anything about what this is, or you're being willfully ignorant on purpose. And like, this YouTuber was not the only one. There were plenty of others. Cyberpunk is now apparently being ruined by the SJWs, and the feminists and the soy boys and the betas and whatever else they call people like us. And yeah, it's so they gave us more options, and now people are pissed. I don't know. I don't. Keith, I'm gonna body swap this into a broader subject. Like, and you don't have to answer this question. It's probably a rhetorical question. What the fuck is going on right now, like, with games? Like, read the last two things we've just talked about, and everything else that's been happening for the last few years.
I mean, I could respond by quoting some people saying that's like video games is the last safe place for like white men, is being a defense which is lauded around a lot.
Oh yeah, those fragile white men,
Yeah,
are so
using
oppressed everywhere
positions of
else.
power to like perpetuate their worldview and get played.
I feel like
I mean, it's been decades without anyone really paying any attention to it because games are not really important. So why would the industry be important? And now the world's catching up with it.
yeah,
It's like they basic game studios have basically been mixed between Mad Men and like Jackass in the 90s. That's kind of what a lot of these stories sound like. Apart from the ones where we hear like there's basically sweatshop conditions half the year. That's basically what some of these studios sound like. It's either like sweatshop or it's kind of run as a boys after school club where everyone's having like laughs and jokes while they work, and those jokes can be very inappropriate and
to
very
put it
hostile
mildly.
to people who aren't in that clique.
Yeah, like, yeah,
I'm specific. Not all of them. It's just that's what we're hearing
yeah.
because people don't talk about the ones where it's five guys, like two guys sitting down and going. By guys, I mean any gender. I have this really great game
Folks.
idea I really want to make, and going out and doing it. We're not really hearing about the amazing work that people like. Trying to think of one that isn't Super Giant Games because I've only watched that one documentary
Danny
about.
O'Dwyer just did a series on IO Interactive, and
Uh,
Hitman.
yeah,
Sort of like the
we don't
Fallen
get
Rise
hear
of
the
Hitman.
positive as much as we do the negative. So that's the whole thing about a negative story will go 9 times further than the positive one.
This is true. I mean, it's also like, I guess from our personal perspective of us doing this podcast, it's also harder to generate a discussion about. Hey, when we watched that Doom documentary that Danny did, and it was
Yeah,
like, hey, like it's harder to generate a positive discussion over that. That wouldn't last a few minutes. It's just like Marty Stratton's fucking hilarious and Doom is
yeah.
awesome. Like that would have been the discussion. Whereas, we hear about the bad stuff, and it is important to talk about the bad stuff because you want the bad stuff to stop. And as we've kind of proven in some regards, sometimes the more we shine a light on bad things, sometimes we can actually promote positive change.
Hopefully.
Especially talking about working conditions. Like there's a bunch of studios now that are just tripping over themselves to make sure that people know that they're not doing this or that they're changing their culture. So, like, because now people are talking about it. Like, I said it last week. If the Kotaku expose hadn't have happened and people hadn't have latched onto it and it hadn't been an ongoing thing that people were talking about, that whole gender discrimination lawsuit that some of the rioters were involved in might have gone very differently. Like, I was surprised that they didn't go to arbitration, and I have a feeling that part of the reason is because of PR. Like, because when people found out about the clauses in the contracts, a lot of people were quite angry, and I think that's what motivated it to some degree. So that's probably one of the reasons why you see a lot more negativity than positivity. At the same time, we do try a lot, and again, I guess I'm talking for us on this channel. We do try a lot to be positive as much as possible. I know this podcast isn't a great example of it, but hey, you should check out some of our other stuff. We do a Hall of Fame series, and we do a friendly debate series where we're nothing but positive. We talk about the things that we love, and it's fun.
Some of the friendly debates are quite sarcastic.
Oh, 100%. Like, 100%. In both directions. I don't legitimately believe that Left 4 Dead is the best cooperative experience of all time. But it helped to get it further up the list by saying that. So yeah, the games culture and games industry is on fire. It's imploding. Everything's bad.
But the dog with the cat is still saying it's all good.
Yeah, so, just all hail the Hypnotoad, I guess. Because nothing makes sense anymore. The games industry is the old house from Control, and if you don't get that reference, go play Control. It's fucking fantastic. Shall we move on?
Yeah.
It's going to be a short episode, I feel. Yeah, here we are. Two people who didn't work at Telltale Games say they're bringing back Telltale Games. This is from Jason Schreier over at Kotaku, who's obviously back from writing his book.
Yeah.
And he writes, Telltale Games is back. Well, at least the name is. A group of investors announced plans last week to revive the iconic studio, which shut down last September. Fucking hell, has it already been a year since that happened? Wow.
Where does the time go, Amy? Where does the time go?
Damn. That means it's nearly a year since I came out. That's wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Although with the company staff, huh?
That had occurred to me.
It just dawned on me there. I was like, yeah. I've been so focused on the charity stuff that I haven't thought about much else. Anyway, although with the company staff having scattered to the winds, this seems less like a revival and more like one of Clementine's enemies. Jamie Attili and Brian Waddle, two men who did not work at Telltale Games, told press that they had secured the rights to the company's name and some of its licenses, and they will be reviving the company in Malibu, California. The original one was located in San Rafael, California, which is 400 miles northwest. Attili's background is in mobile licensed development, such as Duck Dynasty and Power Rangers, while Waddle worked at the outsourcing company Virtuous and the physics software maker Havok. The money for this venture is coming from a publisher called Athlon Games, a subsidiary of the Chinese video game holding company Leu, as well as a group of executives who have worked for game publishers like Rebellion and Starbreeze. In other words, a bunch of people are taking a familiar, beloved name and slapping it on something brand new. Telltale Games, of course, was the company responsible for critically acclaimed adventures like The Walking Dead and Tales from the Borderlands before unexpectedly closing in September 2018. And what about the people who worked at the old Telltale Games? Polygon spoke to Attili, who told them, and I'm quoting Polygon here, quote, that some workers from the original Telltale Games will be offered freelance roles, with full-time positions possible in the future, end quote. Of course, given that Telltale staff were all unceremoniously fired last September without severance and were left scurrying to find new jobs, many of them have gone elsewhere. But it's nice to know that those who didn't find employment are looking to return to the shambling corpse of Telltale may find full-time positions possible in the future. Attili also told Polygon that they plan to resell some of the old Telltale games, many of which have been delisted from digital stores, and try to continue making new ones. I mean, I'd hope they would try to continue making new ones, otherwise this is really pointless. Thoughts?
I do love the whole little bit of humor in there, the shambling corpse. It's the Dark Knight thing. Oh yes, it's like they're just buying the name so they can slap it on other stuff. But they're also suggesting that they will try and give jobs to people who are fired. So the swings and roundabouts on this one. I suppose it really depends how you feel about them coming in now and getting the company after it went into liquidate, when it's just a name. I mean,
Like 1
as
year
far as I'm
later,
aware,
right?
it's sort of corporate grave digging. I don't know what the actual word for it is.
No, grave
This
digging sounds appropriate considering it
this
was
is
Telltale.
fairly common because when the company went into administration, it had a load of assets and licenses, and as they defaulted to the bank. The bank's not a games publisher.
Yeah, what are they going to
Yeah,
do with the IP?
they're gonna want to get some of the money they put into Telltale games back, so they're of course gonna sell it to some. Now, sometimes when this happens, those IPs just exist in a vault somewhere, which no one uses.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Phantom Dust. Sorry.
if you want a possible return of Telltale's Batman, I mean, they might do a deal with Warner Brothers.
Absolutely, and I haven't played the second season. I've been meaning to. I might play it on Saturday. Then again, I don't own it, which could be awkward if you can't buy it anymore. Um, yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. Like this happens all the time. THQ Nordic. Um, we were here, we watched the company go under, and then we watched all this stuff get bought, and then the name came back. Even the name came back. That was a ride, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about this. I'm just gonna be honest. I know those are words you're not supposed to say if you're a podcaster, I guess, because you're always gonna have an opinion about everything. That's something, but
You're
yeah,
not an MP.
yeah. I don't know how I feel about this. I've seen a lot of people who used to work at Telltale, because I follow a bunch of them on Twitter, have very conflicted or mixed feelings about this, and that's completely understandable because Telltale, by all accounts, was a very special place to work, but it was also a very tough place to work. And all of those people lost their jobs more or less out of complete nowhere. They were told
Yeah.
the company went bust on Monday. They were told on Wednesday, and it was done by Friday. That's the kind of
Yeah.
timeline we were talking about. I pointed it
I mean,
out when we talked about it that I had gotten an email about a game they were publishing and getting codes for it the morning of us then finding out that Telltale Games was shutting down.
yeah.
So this came out of nowhere for everybody. So I understand those conflicted feelings.
And me Granger Games, just how fast everything happened.
Yeah, sometimes companies will just disappear, very quickly. But again, it's I have a lot of history, I guess, with Telltale Games. I did a video about them not that long ago, about my history of the games that I played, like Sam and Max, The Walking Dead, Batman, and The Wolf Among Us. Those were the four. I loved all of those games, especially Sam and Max. Shout out to Sam and Max. If you can still buy it, get it, because that game was fucking great and it was underrated because
I
it came
have
before The Walking Dead.
I've still got it. I only ever played the first season and a little, the first episode of the second. I need to go back and complete those seasons.
I fucking love Sam and Max. The
If you're
game and the
90s,
cartoon.
you'll be able to do it and do it with more ease than sadly some of the manuals, because there's a couple of there are a couple of things which you had to have grown up in the 90s or before to get on how to do a couple of the puzzles.
Yes, adventure
Code hang
games.
on the car door window. Woo!
Before Telltale Games rebranded adventure games, like point and click adventure games, as being narrative driven experiences, they were very obtuse in their puzzles. And Sam and Max was very obtuse in some of his puzzles. Luckily, I have no qualms about using game guides. So, but yeah, the thing about bringing them back on as freelancers, I'm in two camps with that as well. It annoys me and it doesn't. It annoys me because you should just hire these people if you want to bring them on. But they're also still a startup. This isn't like Telltale Games has restarted with massive amounts of capital behind it. This is essentially a new company that's just using a name that we're all familiar with.
Yeah.
So,
Basically,
yeah.
basically what I'm thinking is they've got the name, they've got the licenses to the games and stuff. They probably don't have any of the internal documents that Telltale had. All they would know is if someone came in with a CV saying they worked at Telltale Games, they may not have a real way of checking that, apart from say like social media or something. They won't know what that person's real skill set was. They might not have like managers saying this was guy was like great or this person was a problem. Or this person didn't work with us at all. Who is this person? Um, so
No,
yeah, I
this
can
person,
understand what
this
they're
person
doing
worked for
like that.
Telltale Games. What are you talking
Yeah.
about?
I can see them
Don't
like
think.
being a bit wary about like offering to everyone.
Yeah, well, I mean, they obviously can't. I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that they were talking about having 30 employees, and obviously, as we know, Telltale Games employed a lot more than that.
Yeah.
It's like 200. Okay, there isn't a development company called Telltale Games. I thought I'd just check in case I just
Not
insulted
yet.
a real development company. Yeah, so it's like they obviously can't just start right out of the gates employing literally everybody who worked at Telltale Games when it collapsed, because
Yeah.
then this Telltale Games would probably collapse quite quickly. Um, I am very interested to know because like when you buy a game studio, like THQ Nordic bought fucking shitloads of
Yeah.
like THQ properties as well as the name, but those properties were like things like Saints Row,
Yeah.
like. But Telltale Games didn't make its own stuff. Like it was licensed games like Batman, The Walking Dead, the Stranger Things game that we never got. Rest in
Yeah.
peace. Um, so which, how does this company still have IP? Like they have licenses to make new games, or are they just talking about the licenses to bring back the games that got delisted?
I mean, the games that got delisted might be brought back purely so they can try and recoup some of the money from buying the name and the license that they've got. But there may be some sort of open-ended license, not open-ended, but sort of Telltale had the rights to produce X amount of games under like X amount of series of games for say Batman from Warner Brothers. And if that's still active, they might have the ability to produce another season of games in the Batman
Interesting. All
universe.
right, fair enough. The other thing they
Um,
were talking about as well was they're
yeah,
going to use the Telltale engine. Uh,
yeah.
no, don't do that. Don't
Hadn't
you?
Telltale just started building a new engine? Or
No, what Telltale had done was they'd started building The Wolf Among Us
yeah,
and Stranger Things on Unreal. Like Walking
right.
Dead, the final season was literally the last game that was going to be on the Telltale engine. I can't remember what the name of it was now. And then the next game after that was going to be on the Unreal engine, and it was about time, like because the Telltale
And
engine
Tom gave a massive sigh of relief,
was
which was heard.
collapsing.
Yeah,
like the like it wasn't a great engine, and then you read this story. It's like Telltale are coming back, and they're gonna try and like continue the Telltale brand, but not make the mistakes that Telltale made, and they're gonna be using the Telltale engine because the Telltale engine is a part of the thing of buying like the company and its
yeah.
assets, and it's just like just don't, just leave it. Like take it down the market and sell it for a fiver. Just Unreal is the way to go for you guys. Don't build your own engine.
It depends on the scale and scope of what they're going to be doing. What if they build for their new games? It's possible the Telltale engine might be. I'm not going to say like they might not be trying to do as highly graphic fidelities and produce something slightly more retro, which would be fine in the Telltale engine.
Well, Telltale games have always been quite stylized. Like none of them are like that. They all have that cartoony comic book look, like
Yeah.
which I'm sure you've seen.
Well, yeah, I
Even the
played the
games,
Sam and Max games and the
you know,
Batman.
even the games that aren't based on comic books, like The Walking Dead and Batman, like Tales from the Borderlands as well, Game of Thrones even. But like the other thing is as well is that engine like was only used by people who worked for Telltale Games. So maybe it's not a great idea to use an engine that not like if you're hiring people who didn't used to work for Telltale,
Yeah.
they're not going to be familiar with this engine at all. And Now we're just talking nerdly about engines.
Yeah.
But that bit did also jump out at me. And yes, I also appreciated Jason's snark in the thing. The shambling corpse of Telltale. Oh, Jason, never change. Shall we move on to our final news story? This probably won't take long. Valve will fight European Commission's anti-competition ruling against Steam. This is from Andy Chalk over at PC Gamer, who writes, 5 game publishers have agreed to settle the EC's complaints, but Valve wants to stay in. Okay. Earlier this year, the European Commission launched an investigation into 6 game companies. Valve, Bandai Namco, Capcom, Focushome Interactive, Koch Media, and ZeniMax over suspected anti-competitive practices. In April, it released a preliminary finding that the practice of geo-blocking games, which restricts the ability of people to buy games based on their home location, violates EU competition rules. Simplistically put, geo-blocking prevents people in wealthy countries from taking advantage of lower prices in other regions. But the EC's preliminary finding is that these business practices partition markets according to national borders and restricted passive sales to consumers. These business practices ultimately denied European consumers the benefits of the EU's digital single market to shop around for the most attractive offer. In a true digital single market, European consumers should have the right to buy and play video games of their choice regardless of where they live in the EU, Commissioner Margrethe Vestager said in a statement. Consumers should not be prevented from shopping around between member states to find the best available deal. Valve and the 5 PC video game publishers now have the chance to respond to our concerns. Since then, according to a Reuters report, Bandai Namco, Capcom, Focushome Interactive, Koch Media and ZeniMax have all agreed to settle the case. The terms of the settlement aren't known, but Reuters said that under EU antitrust rules, companies are given a 10% reduction in their fines for admitting to wrongdoing. Valve has decided to fight the charges, however, and is now expected to seek a hearing with European Commission, competition regulators, and national watchdogs to argue its case. If, after Valve presents its defence, the Commission determines that there is still sufficient evidence of an infraction, it can issue an order to halt the offending practices and impose a fine of up to 10% of the company's annual worldwide turnover. PC Gamer have reached out to Valve and the European Commission for a comment and will update if they receive a reply. 10% of their annual worldwide turnover.
Yeah.
Valve must be really sure they know what they're doing here. The other companies didn't seem to be. And some of those companies are pretty rich.
Yeah. I mean, maybe they didn't want to take the chance. Maybe Valve's being it does seem sort of.
I mean, they could halt.
Valve alone is charged in the valley of death. It could be.
I mean, this is a dangerous thing, unless you're absolutely fucking sure.
I mean, usually the only people who win in this sort of interaction is the lawyers, but this seems like quite a high risk for Valve.
100%. I'd love to know what advice they're getting that Capcom, Koch Media, ZeniMax, and everybody else didn't get. To say that we can fight this. Because if we lose, we're going to have to pay a lot of money. And also we could potentially have, what was it? The specific thing? Can issue an order to halt the offending practices. Which means they will be forced to stop geo-blocking games.
Yeah.
If they lose.
I mean, what, it's not like they're being asked to stop geo-blocking all games.
Yeah.
They're being asked to stop geo-blocking EU countries.
Yeah,
because it's part of the shared market, and it eventually caught up online. And Valve's like, no, it's this totally doesn't apply to us. Apparently,
Valve thinks a lot of things don't apply to them.
Yeah, I mean, it's like certain companies saying, no, these aren't loot boxes. Actually, I think that loot boxes on gambling is got slightly more weight behind it than the idea. No, geo-blocking things is totally right, even if you say it's wrong, because what Valve are doing is saying if you live in a specific country, you're paid a specific price.
Yeah, you will. If you live in the
even if
UK, you
even if
will
the
pay.
country you live in has signed agreements saying that anything sold in this country online or in physical copy, like there's like this central marketing that we are currently a part of and will be soon leaving.
Maybe you don't. You ran yourself off the tracks there.
Yeah,
I
I'm just
didn't do
trying to
it.
figure out how to do it. I can't. I also can't see how like Valve is saying like we're immune to it. It's like, oh, but it's totally online. It's like the specific piece of legislation that they're being called up on is the Digital Marketplace Act. So they can't go, this doesn't apply to like online stores.
Like again, yeah, it's like they're not saying I can buy a game at the American price.
Yeah,
They're
we're saying,
saying I can buy a game at the French price or the German
yeah,
price or the Spanish price. Like,
it's like someone in say Northern Ireland going, you know what? I don't have £15 on me, but I've got X amount of euros on me and paying in euros. And I know at least in like some shops in like Northern Ireland you can do that because where I work they have stores in Northern Ireland. And I occasionally see the procedures for stuff. Um it's like yeah, it's like I could if I was on Amazon buy something for the US and get it shipped over here. It wouldn't be any cheaper for me. But currently, I could, if I wanted to, go out of my way and check on the Amazon French store and see if it would be cheaper to get something shipped over from France.
yeah,
I don't. And like most people, I like 90% of people, I don't think like most gamers would even know to check that they could get a cheaper version of like the game from somewhere else in the EU, like EU gamers.
yeah.
Um, and when you think about the massive like scope of the marketplace and stuff for games and stuff,
Well, let's be real. You can't right now, right? Because
yeah,
I mean, hell, I have a
not on
an
Steam or anything,
not
but
on
yeah.
Steam, no, which is obviously the big de facto platform, or at least it was until last December. Um, like I have an American account on my Switch. I don't buy games on it. Like they got sent a code for Wargroove, and it was they accidentally sent me the North American one. So instead of getting them to see if they could get me a code for it, I just went, you know what? I'll just make a fucking American account. It's fine. Like, and it was fine. Like, I just have to sign into that account when I want to play Wargroove. It's crazy how like interconnected the digital world is, and how Valve seems to want to like live in the Stone Age, despite the fact that it's an entirely digital fucking storefront. Like,
Yes.
it wants to pretend that it's a mom and pop shop, to use an
I
American
mean,
phrase.
I haven't seen their statements on this, just that they're fighting it.
Yeah,
I
no,
mean,
that's all that's happened. They're fighting
I
it.
don't,
This is the
I don't know
entire
if,
story.
I don't understand. I don't understand if it's a problem with how they would actually instigate it on their storefront, or if it's a moral thing for them.
The
I don't
same.
know.
I think you do the same. I mean, it'd be easy to implement because Discord. You just do the same thing that we do on Discord. There's a drop down menu, and you click it, and you can just move your server to a different country. It's like how a VPN works, right? Like
Yeah,
you get a VPN, and you can just change your location to whatever. Like you just need to build part of the UI. I know it requires Valve to actually do some programming, but like and not just change their algorithm so more indie developers get fucked over. But I'm sure they could manage.
I'm sure indie developers. There's something that could like fuck over indie developers in this. There's always something that could fuck over indie developers. It's the sad state of being an indie developer. Something can hurt you.
Something will hurt you. It's not something can hurt you. It's that something will hurt you
Something
eventually.
will hurt you a lot.
Probably the algorithms. But yeah, no, like I read this story and I'm just confused what Valve knows that Capcom and everybody else, Koch Media, like didn't know, like to
Yeah.
like go, oh no, we're gonna fight this, even though it could cost us. What do you think their annual turnover is?
I don't even want to know.
Their annual worldwide turnover, and they think like 10% of that. Like, I mean, do you think it's in the billions? Let talk for a couple of minutes. I want to try and do some research here. Like,
I think I've kind of run dry on this one. I mean, I could give the games of the week out if you'd like. If you feel
No,
like that up.
no. I'll just let me try one thing really quickly. Like,
Okay, fair enough. I mean,
Steam saw an increase in game sale revenue of $800 million in 2017 over the year prior. Based on Gallagher's estimates, revenue generated from sales peaked at $4.3 billion in 2017, which was up from $3.5 billion in 2016.
what 4 point whatever.
So I mean, like, even let's say Steam were flat for the last 2 years, for last year and this year, like 10% of 4.3 billion is 4.3 million, right? Or is it 43 million? Hang on. Maths wasn't either of our strong suits.
Yeah, I think 43 sounds right.
What is 10% of 4.3 billion?
Today's episode brought to you by Google.
Why would you not put the commas in? Well, that can't be billion. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's got 7 zeros after it. So if I just... Nope. Yeah, 43 million.
Yeah.
So they stand to lose at least $43 million. So fucking... That's some money.
Plus legal fees.
Plus legal fees. Plus potentially having to do this thing anyway.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Well, if they lose, they will have to do that.
Yeah. Yikes, as the kids would say. Good luck to them. Keith, games out this week.
So, it has begun. Games out this week on the 3rd of September, which I believe is tomorrow from when this podcast goes out.
Tuesday,
yeah. Catherine for Body comes to PS4. Torchlight 2 comes to PS4, Xbox One and Switch. Spyro, the Reignited trilogy, comes to PC and Switch. Uplay Plus service launch comes to PC. Final Fantasy VIII Remastered comes to PC, PS4, Xbox One and Switch. And Children of Morta on PC. Then, on the 5th, we have Sin Slayers on PC. Fracta on PC. Green Hell, almost misread that, on PC. And then NBA 2K20 on PC, PS4, Xbox One, and Switch. Then finally, on September the 6th, we have Falcon Age on the Rift, Vive, and Index. That's one we don't normally see normal. Creature in the Well comes out on PC, Xbox One, and Switch. I believe we talked about that on the Gamescom cast.
We did.
And then we have Monster Hunter World Iceborne coming to PS4 and Xbox One.
Yes. I'm playing one of these games right now. Children of Morta. It's really good. Those aren't my final thoughts, because my final thoughts are embargoed. Those are my influx thoughts, I guess.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's probably my standout game looking at that list as well. Torchlight 2 is really cool. Final Fantasy 8. Really interested to know how many people are going to sign up to Uplay Plus. Because I think I remember, was it E3, where it was like, Uplay Plus is going to have all these games. And I was like, interested. And then they were like, it's going to cost this much. And I went, no, I'm alright. Like, it was the quickest I'd ever been hooked and then escaped the hook.
Yeah.
Like, I think ever in my entire life. We need to do a story on NBA. There's a story that's been going around about NBA 2K20. And there wasn't room for it in this podcast. If it's a slow news week next week, we're definitely going to have to revisit it because I think it's really funny. And we could definitely get a good laugh out of it. That is going to do it for episode 173 of the Words Back Gamescast. It's very, yeah, that was an episode. Just be good to each other. That's what I'm going to leave you with.
Be excellent to one another.
Keith always does takes what I say and makes it sound even better. Because he's a
Wild Stallions. Sorry.
Say bye, Keith.
Bye-bye.